Minh Thúy xin kính chào quý vị hôm nay thứ Sáu, 3 tháng 5, 2024. Đến với VATV hôm nay gồm có phỏng vấn đặc biệt và nhạc lá bồ đề. Kính thưa quý vị, một trong những khó khăn nhất của các chuyên gia phân tích cuộc chiến Việt Nam là ý kiến của người dân. Người dân miền Nam Việt Nam thực sự suy nghĩ như thế nào trong cuộc chiến? Họ có theo dõi sát những biến động thời sự hay không? Người dân ở các thành phố có suy nghĩ khác với người dân thôn quê hay không? Và nếu có, thì sự khác biệt đó như thế nào? Tại sao với kỹ thuật và giới truyền thông hiện đại như vậy mà người Mỹ lại không thể giúp cho người dân biết rõ tình cảnh của họ? Hơn nữa, tuy đã biết rõ tình hình nguy ngập của Sài Gòn rất từ lâu, tại sao Mỹ đã chần chờ, không hành động cho đến phút cuối khi việc đã trở thành quá trễ? Xin mời quý vị theo dõi sự suy nghĩ và giải thích của ông Lacy Wright trong phần 6 phỏng vấn đặc biệt do Phan Lê Dũng, Võ Thành Nhân và Minh Thúy thực hiện.
What's your personal experience in dealing with the Vietnamese whom you're observing? How do you think they fare along with, how much do they really know about reality? Are they far away from reality? Or are they reacting in a too narrow-minded way? Or how does it feel for you? I mean, how does a typical Vietnamese feel for you at the time?
I guess it very much depends on whether they were out in the villages and hamlets or whether they were in Saigon or another big city. I think that the people who were in Saigon and probably other large cities didn't know much about how the war was going. Civilians I'm talking about. I think that they, and especially at the end, that's clear. They did not know, for example, how in what dire straits the government was right at the end. That's clear.
Was that because of their ignorance, or was that they ill-informed? I mean,
well, they were badly informed, and well, first of all, I don't think many ordinary Vietnamese, say in Saigon, followed the progress of the war very closely. That's my guess. I don't think they did. And then you had both the Americans and the South Vietnamese government telling him that things were okay. But clearly, after the terrible botched withdrawal from the northern part of South Vietnam, and this heartbreaking breakdown, with people streaming south and so on and so on, clearly the war was over. War was over. But a lot of people didn't realize that. A lot of civilians in Saigon didn't realize that because they were being fed information that wasn't accurate.
And what's the American role in that? I mean, why couldn't they get more educated with all the information that we get? Is that
well, I'm afraid the Americans did have a role in that, and particularly through Ambassador Graham Martin, because he was trying very hard to hold everything together. He turned out to believe, mistakenly, that, well, first of all, he was trying to hold together the situation in Saigon and everywhere else that he could. And there are good reasons why one would want to do that. God forbid that the people of Saigon had risen up and everybody gone to the airport at the same time. Would have been awful. So you can understand that. But I'm afraid that he really believed that there was a chance that there could be an agreement with the communist side that would have allowed a much more orderly exodus from Vietnam and much less turmoil and bloodshed. He turned out to have been dead wrong about that. And one has to regard that as a black mark against his ambassadorship at the time. He had apparently different kinds of information. He chose to believe information that was not true and was never true.
Back to your court, when you were working with the court, generally speaking, how do you see they function with the court? As an organization. I mean,
okay. Well, courts started out, as you know, in 1967. It was not the first effort to try to engage in pacification in Vietnam. There were previous, 2 or 3 previous efforts that were seen not to work. There was the Agroville program inherited from the French.
Strategic Hamlet, yes.
Hamlet program. There was OCO. But finally, they kind of got it right. In 1967, they formed this civilian military organization to look after pacification. And it included, as I see it, there were two general kinds of pacification. There was the military side, in which one tried to help the regional forces, the provincial forces, be trained and be able to protect their own areas. And then there was the civilian part, which I think today would be called nation building. And I think that there were a lot of achievements in this area. The Cords people at all of these different levels were building roads, they were constructing markets, they were bringing in TV stations, communication, they were building schools, and maybe most interesting of all and most important of all, there was the land reform program, the land of the tiller. Now, the land of the tiller was not part of Cords, but certainly it was part of the overall effort for South Vietnam to become a strong and functioning country. And I think it's very interesting today to look back on the land reform program, which everybody agrees was a success. It was done the right way. It was funded by the Americans, mostly. It was, the gist of it was that landowners were paid for their land. It was expropriated, but they were paid for it. Maybe not as much as they wanted, but more than a token amount. And then it was given to individual farmers. Contrast that with the communist land reform program of 1953, 54, 55.
Yes.
First of all, they never paid anybody for the land they took. In fact, they killed a number of the landowners. It was just a disastrous, it was such a disastrous and violent program that even they, after 3 or 4 years, had to pull back and realize they had made a lot of big mistakes. So what a difference, huh? And I think it's a very useful example to bring up when you want to compare these two systems and how they operated in the real world.
A lot of people say the knowledge of the certain people were inadequate.
I'm sorry, the what?
The knowledge about the government, what they're doing, what they're striving for, what they have done, their accomplishment, was misunderstood by the South Vietnamese people. Would you say that's a correct judgment?
Well, I don't know, but it's easy to believe. Easy to believe. Don't forget that, of course, most people, especially outside of the big cities, were constantly subject to propaganda by the communist side, and they were very good at this. So, yeah, I can easily believe that a lot of people were either misled or were just ignorant of what was going on.
Kính mời quý vị đón xem phần 7 phỏng vấn đặc biệt với ông Lacy Wright, nhân viên cao cấp Sở Ngoại vụ, sẽ được phát hình vào tối thứ Sáu, ngày 10 tháng 5, 2024. Kính thưa quý vị, chương trình VATV đến đây xin tạm ngưng.